I grew up in an upper middle class home, and from a young age, I had behavior problems. A lot of, back then, they called it ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder, which just really meant that I was hyperactive, didn't nap when all the other kids did, and was highly intelligent and highly manipulative at a very young age. Looking back through recovery and as an adult, I can identify that that's when I was made to feel different than the rest of the kids. And later on in life, it's why I gravitated towards the group that I did. One of the first times I got in trouble, I had stormed out of my parents' house in a rage, broke the window to a vacant house, and then was arrested shoplifting in town. And as an adult, my parents had told me that when I was taken to the juvenile hall, they had called my parents and said, come pick your kid up. And my parents said, no, we can't. He needs to get some help. I went to looking back, I know it was a dual diagnosis treatment center for behavior issues, mental health, and substance abuse. Then they called it a group home or a placement. And that was the first instance of incarceration or institutionalization that I had. All throughout high school and as a young adult, I gravitated towards antisocial and counterculture types of people because after therapy and a lot of introspection, I realized those were the people that would always accept me no matter what. And I felt like I wanted to be around people that would accept me no matter what, because there would be a thing that I would do or something that would upset people's expectations, and people would be angry at me as a kid. So I just wanted to be around people that would take you at your worst no matter what, because they were at their worst, which led me to run around in circles of not healthy people, and at times very dangerous people. So that was 17 or 18. I started running around San Fernando Valley and doing a lot of drugs, just living a life of zero responsibilities, zero accountability, doing what I want when I wanted. And I thought that that was freedom. And it started manifesting more in criminal behaviors than drugs, although they went hand in hand. And whether it was the drug addiction to escape self or the just wanton criminal behavior to escape the way that I felt, I don't know which was more prevalent. They were both equal. And I went in and out of the LA County jail system for years. Technically, I've got, I think, 5 prison sentences. For anybody that's been in the prison system, I first got my G number in 2008, so I was 18, going to prison. That's what I got used to for so long. It was predictable. I could control it to some degree, and it's where I felt comfortable. It was out in society that I felt uncomfortable, or that anything I got, life-wise, I was destined to lose. I was destined to go through the heartbreak of getting arrested, losing everything, dealing with the heartbreak that I caused my family and friends by going back. So it was often easier just to stay there. There was one time that I got out of prison, and that very night, I was wishing that I hadn't got out and wished I could just go back and skip the whole process of getting arrested and going back. And I was stuck in that frame of mind for a long time, with no coping skills to escape it, just drugs to numb the feeling during that time. So I was almost always destined to return to prison. It was just, the question was what for and for how long at a time. My problem wasn't drugs or alcohol. Drugs and alcohol were the solution to the original problem, and it was the only one that I had. So when I took away the drugs and the alcohol, I was left with that problem that drove me to the alcohol and drugs anyways. And I had created this mask in that counterculture of violence, crime, gang activity, and it was a mask that I metaphorically wore around others, and then others began, and society at large began treating me as that person, when internally I only felt it was a mask. When they started treating me as that person and I didn't know how to change it, is when I knew I was really in trouble, because I wasn't a violent or dangerous person, but I was being treated as one. I decided to go back to California to get help. The way that worked was I abandoned my child and my son's mom and my family in the healthiest thing that I could do, which was leave, because I knew that I was the problem and only going to bring more wreckage. Came back to California trying to get into treatment, needed to get Medi-Cal or insurance, and that's a 30-day process. I was literally on foot with a suitcase and no means to support myself. Naturally, I went back to the only way I knew how to get money now, and that's through criminal behavior and networking in a group of criminals in a mutually profitable kind of way. And I went the one place that I knew no one would ever look for me at, and that was a homeless shelter in North Hollywood, California. And it was a harm reduction environment, which meant that nobody there got kicked out for drugs. They would rather people have a safe place to stay than sleep under bridges doing drugs. So there were constantly people overdosing in the homeless shelter. Drugs had proliferated it. And it was at that point where I reached a level of desperation of, I'll do whatever it fucking takes. I can't keep living like this. Too much of a coward to kill myself, but couldn't continue living like that. So at that point, I was strung out on fentanyl, meth, and whatever else you happen to have at the time. And I had to go into a medical detox because the withdrawals were life-threatening. That was the last time that I really, where my drug addiction and my behaviors were still sick. I completed the detox, completed the residential treatment, and I went to a sober living with outpatient services attached to it called Stairway Recovery in the West San Fernando Valley in California. And I stayed there for like a year or a year and a half, and did the work that it took to change who I was. In the program, they call it doing esteemable acts to build a self-esteem. And once I built that self-esteem, I then gained like the self-confidence to go out and seek work. And I sought work in addiction treatment. And the ability I saw that I had was to use my experience or my mess as part of my message. And I was able to identify with those addicts coming into treatment at their rock bottom and to explain my story and to like kind of be the example that there is hope. You just have to be willing to do the hard work, and then laying out the steps of what that hard work would look like with clients in residential detox, residential treatment. And I found I was good at it. So I'm an admissions coordinator for a treatment program called La Ventana. It's a mental health and substance abuse treatment facility. So I answer the phone when someone makes a phone call to say, I think I need help. It's me that picks up the phone to say, if you think you do and you've made this call, you do.
Admissions, this is James.
My purpose is to carry the message to the addict and alcoholic that still suffers, that there is hope and that there is recovery past just addiction and past mental health.
Are you struggling with substance abuse or mental health?
That we do recover, and that there's hope no matter what your situation is, no matter how hopeless it feels in the moment. And that's my purpose. And I get to do it professionally, I get to do it on a personal level, and I get to reap the rewards of that recovery with a fulfilling career, the ability to do the things that I want, go the places I want, and spend time with the people that I do. I wouldn't go back for anything. And I've slowly done what people in the program, AA and NA, told me I had to do to stay sober, was to build a life that I was unwilling to surrender or give up. Um, Build a life of fulfillment, of fun, of love, of compassion, of a close group of friends, of being able to be a son to my parents, a brother to my brother, a father to my son, and a partner to a significant other. And I'm capable of that today. And there's nothing that would make me want to give up all of those things, even in a moment of frustration and being overwhelmed, when I still absolutely have temptations to use drugs to escape a feeling. I know now that to use a drug to escape a temporary feeling would mean giving up my entire life. It would mean giving up my friends, my career. Um, I would ruin everything, and I would lose it all. And on a day-to-day basis, I get to see that I would lose it all by working with other addicts as they come into recovery. Um, and right now, today, it still keeps me sober. It's been 17 months since my last use of any mind-altering substance. Um, and I've never felt freer and comfortable in my own skin. And that's not to say it's without its difficulties or struggles, because it has been difficult and there have been horrendous struggles while sober, but nothing that would make me want to go back to living in a fucking homeless shelter with what I could carry while everyone I know was going to federal prison for the rest of their life. And I was wondering if I was next. What I'm left with is an amazing, fulfilling life, both personally and professionally. Um, I get to help other addicts professionally, um, and to share my story professionally and help others see that they too can have what I do. I have an amazing home, an amazing woman in my life. I'm now a present father in my son's life. I'm able to be a present son in my parents' life, brother to my brother. Um, I'm employable now. Um, and that life doesn't even often feel real. It's so different from the life that I have today that it's hard to imagine that it was my normal and that I never felt that this could be mine.
What would you tell somebody who is in that homeless shelter just like you were? What would you tell them?
Um, I probably wouldn't say anything. I'd probably hug them and cry with them. And then I would maybe um, tell them that it doesn't have to be that way, that they too can escape it, but it's going to be the hardest thing that they've ever done, and it just might be impossible. But with prayer and with God and learning about prayer and how to rely on God and a higher power and a program, that step by step you can escape that. You can get out of it. It can be done. I am a success story. Um, I'm not one of very many. Um, so what it requires might be more than they are capable of at the time. But if they make tiny steps, they can become capable of making the systemic changes that are needed.